Hi everyone. Today I'm I'm returning to a composer, and one that I did recently and kind of surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. Of course, a lot of classical influence I heard in it. That is Nobuo Uematsu, who, well, if you know, you know. He composes music for video games, and I enjoyed it so much I'm returning again. This one is Melodies of Life. The first one I listened to was One Winged Angel, and I have a bit to read about it first, because if you know me, you know I know nothing about video games except for what I have learned here, pretty much. So let's see what else I have to learn. Melodies of Life is a song from the video game Final Fantasy IX composed by Nobuo Uematsu, with vocals by Emiko Shiratori. I think I got that right. The song, which plays during the game's closing credits, takes the primary leitmotif of the game's score and recontextualizes it as a pop ballad. Sounds kind of cool. Role-playing video games like the Final Fantasy series have their origins in early pen and paper role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and as such, many of them are set in medieval times or borrow heavily from medieval settings. The Final Fantasy games started with predominantly medieval settings, but beginning with Final Fantasy VI, the games took on more modern aesthetics, including steampunk and cyberpunk. Ooh, okay. Some fans complained about this change, and while Final Fantasy's developers said that they wanted to continue pursuing modern and futuristic settings in future Final Fantasy games, they gave Final Fantasy IX a more medieval setting to appease longtime fans who were upset about the shift. Okay, nice to have all this background because, as I said, I don't know much about video games. In this way, Melodies of Life can be seen not just as a farewell to Final Fantasy IX as a video game, but to the roots of the Final Fantasy series as well. This is emphasized by Melodies of Life closing with an orchestral refrain of the classic Final Fantasy prologue theme, which had been in 7 of the previous 8 Final Fantasy games. It would only appear in 1 of the next 4. The prologue theme is one of the most iconic pieces of video game music, as evidenced by its inclusion in the opening ceremonies of the recent Tokyo Olympics, and has even been used by gamers as a wedding march for their real-life weddings. Why not? If you like it, go for it. I shall refrain from commenting on classical music standards of wedding repertoire, which I get a bit tired of because I'm a harpist and I play for a lot of weddings. So anytime there's another great piece of wedding music, I say, bring it on, let's go. So maybe someday I'll get to play a harp arrangement of this for somebody's wedding. Who knows? Let's see what it sounds like. What a beautiful melody. And I have to comment on the vocalist's voice. Let me see if I can pronounce this name again. Let me practice this a bit. Emiko Shiratori. Emiko Shiratori. Okay, it starts to feel more familiar. Emiko Shiratori. This voice is... There's something ethereal and incredibly clear. Her voice is so smooth and clear and weightless, effortless. I love that sound. As I'm listening to this melody, my first, well, even the orchestration around it, everything, it sounds like an orchestral rendition of I don't think of it so much as medieval, but Celtic, traditional Irish, Scottish, Welsh, the whole Celtic region. A lot of their folk songs have this sort of melodic contour and feel, and Shiratori is giving it that very light folk song voice as well. Delicate treatment around the little contours of the melody. I like that. And so, of course, with what I read in the introduction about it being medieval focused and so forth, well, the Celtic Isles are great places to explore those ideas, aren't they? And those traditions and histories. So that makes sense to me. Although, to my ears, it sounds maybe not so medieval. It's just incredibly folk song beautiful. However, as I continued listening, and maybe it's just because this song has been stuck in my ears recently, it's one that I listened to a little while back, but I've listened to it a few times since, and it is a bit of an earworm. It's an incredibly beautiful tune. That is Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love. And there are things about this melody which kind of follow the same melodic lines. There were places where I could almost take it. If she didn't continue singing what was written, what the music is, it could almost be taken to Can't Help Falling in Love. Well, I know that the prologue theme, which comes at the end of this, is what is used as real-life wedding material from this game series. But I'm thinking, this could work really well too, especially if you then do a fun little twist and detour into Can't Help Falling in Love somewhere along the way. That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? Those of you with musical ambitions, I challenge you to take this, do a medley, do an arrangement of your own, blend it with Can't Help Falling in Love, and I'd love to hear how it goes, because I can hear it in my imagination as something that would be really beautiful. Okay, let's keep listening here. Instrumental mix. Right here. Da, 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 dum, da, da, da. Wouldn't it work well? nice little stretching of the rhythm there. I'm thinking about this voice and the clarity of it, and I'm listening to the oboe, which is used to contrast, to kind of partner with it. Not really contrast, because they sound so... They both have such a good, clear tone. They balance each other. How would I describe the voice in comparison to the oboe? I would say the voice is the flute partner. And so we have the oboe and the vocal flute. And all of the instrumentation in here is tending towards that bell-like, clear quality. Even the piano, as it cascades down the keys. We're going for this feeling of lightness and pure, cold, clean water. Beautiful scenery, forests, meadows, all of this stuff. It brings this sort of imagery to mind. And the more I listen to this, the more even the orchestral parts, I started to say earlier, and then I wanted to pay attention to the music, so I didn't finish the thought. Even the orchestral mix, it really is putting me in the sort of modern orchestrated version of Celtic folk song world, which it's not Beethoven, it's not Bach, it's not certainly not Wagner, but it is a sound that personally I enjoy a lot. And I have a playlist of modern classical by Celtic composers, and as well as orchestrations of traditional Celtic music. I have a whole collection of stuff because I just enjoy that sound personally. So I find this very easy to just fall into and love. And I suppose I'll probably put this in that whole mix as well because it fits perfectly with the other stuff that I have there. It's kind of fun. Amy, adding video game music to her playlist. Why not, as I said? If it works, if it's beautiful, and this is great music. Joyful strings. There's that oboe. I love the oboe. This must be the prologue. Harp glissando in there. Yep, it's got it all. It makes a great processional. It has this stately feel. It has this elegance to it. This hopeful quality, beautiful mix. It ends up with a wonderful climax. Glissando up to the top of the harp. Orchestral flourish. I hope that someday I get to play this for somebody's wedding. That would be fun. This is my second experience with a piece of music by this composer. Both pieces from the video game series Final Fantasy. He writes beautiful music. The orchestrations are lovely. The melodies are beautiful. It's nice, satisfying stuff to listen to, at least for me. Of course, that's not surprising, since I come from a classical background, and this stuff is very heavily, in fact, I would say it falls squarely in the classical tradition. So it's a bit off track from the whole rock music theme of this channel. At the same time, it's right on target in that, as we're exploring where music is going, where it comes from, how it has traveled, we're going through the whole rock music era. But as we've seen, even in the rock world, there's the progressive rock and the mixing of classical and more modern elements, and the question of how is music going to end up in the next 50 years, 100 years? What is going to kind of sift out from all that happened in the 20th century? All the explorations, all the breaking down of traditions and barriers and rules and finding new ways of putting things together. Some from the steeped in tradition classical side, some from the follow your instincts and bring in your life experience rock side. All of it comes together, and at some point it's going to kind of settle into I won't say a new style, but the stuff that is worthy of holding on to is going to be retained, and the chaff will kind of sift out and fall away. And it's so fascinating to me to see something as modern as video games featuring such deeply classical elements, musical styles, and seeing how, well, as I'm exploring the rock music, you see me pointing out things that I recognize from my classical background. It's not exclusive to classical. We find it everywhere. We find it in practically any kind of music, even if that music is, let's say, Indian classical or classic rock or some African traditional style. There are musical elements which are common to every kind of music, and it's beautiful to see how they apply and what is it that draws people in. And so it's fun for me to listen to something like this on this channel occasionally as well, saying, yeah, people still fall in love with classical music. They do, as long as it's presented in a way that is relevant and meaningful. And this is one of those. So lovely experience. That was Nobuo Uematsu's Melodies of Life from the Final Fantasy series. I guess that was Final Fantasy IX. And, well, as the introduction said, kind of the farewell to the classical, because they're moving towards a different style of game, which probably means a different style of music. Well, maybe I'll try out some of that different stuff at some point in the future. Or maybe I will find that this composer has done something outside of video game music, which would be fun to see what else he does. We'll see. And I'll see you soon.